What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Wake and Jake College Football Show. Happy Thanksgiving, but more importantly, happy Rivalry Week. This is one of the better weekends in college football, for sure. It's always fun to see the rivals go up against each other. Can never count anybody out, throw out the record books, that sort of thing. Because it is Thanksgiving week, we do have a lot more games being played on Friday than we normally would. So we're probably going to cover a few extra games today than we normally would. But otherwise, typical episode, news, preview the weekend, 5 favorite bets. Let's jump right in and let's get a little high. All right, news from the week. This one's a little sad. I didn't love this bit of news, but a day or two after Mac Brown says that he will be back next season for North Carolina, he is fired. It's sad to see a legendary coach get fired because let's be honest, he's not going to coach again. This is it. This was his last stop. As soon as he did retire or quit, get fired, whatever, that was it. He was not coming back. I definitely thought, we had that issue earlier in the year when James Madison just dropped 70 points on North Carolina. And, there's all those reports that Mac Brown was trying to retire, trying to quit on the spot, got talked out of it, calmed down, said, I'm not quitting right now on the team. I will finish out the year, that sort of thing, yada, yada. When that all happened, we kind of figured, okay, this is it. This is going to be his final season. He's going to retire at the end of the year. That's that. They're going to let him walk away with dignity, that sort of thing. And then he announced he was coming back. And I think that's when they were like, oh, okay, he's trying to come back. Now we need to fire him. Wow, we thought you were going to retire at the end of the season. Sorry, can't allow this. You're out. Like I said, it's sad to see. Legendary coach. You hate to see it end that way, but it is what it is. He is still going to coach the final game of the season, so they are still giving him that. But Mac Brown out at North Carolina. This is the first Power 4 head coaching job to open up, so it'll be very interesting to see who takes his place. I've already heard rumors that PJ Fleck's going to be the next coach there, and yada yada. I don't know. Those rumors happen every year with him. I'll believe it when I see it. One thing we do have to get into, because it's just absolutely crazy, the tiebreakers this weekend. There are a lot of tiebreakers. This is probably not the time for this rant, so I'll just try to keep it short. This is the problem with expanding your conferences and getting rid of divisions. When you have 16, 18 teams in your conference, it's hard for every team to play each other, and it's hard to be able to compare schedules and then decide who's going to be playing in the conference championship game. When you had divisions, it was just the winner of each division. And that was pretty easy to figure out because you played everybody in your division. Now it's just become way too impossible. We saw it with Oregon when they won against Wisconsin. It took until Tuesday until anybody realized, oh, hey, Oregon clinched a spot in the Big Ten title game. Yeah, didn't even realize it took us a minute. It should not take 3 days to figure out who's in the, that somebody earned a spot in the Big Ten title game. Again, a rant for a different day. I'll cut it off right there, but this is the problem with conference realignment and getting rid of divisions. I hate realignment. I've been vocal about that. Didn't love getting rid of divisions, and this is a big reason why, because this just creates such a kerfuffle. SEC is pretty cut and dry. Georgia's already clinched a spot in the title game. Texas and Texas A&M play this weekend. Whoever wins that game faces Georgia in the SEC title game. Thank God that one is not confusing because it was about to turn into a shit show when every team had 2 losses. So it worked itself out in the SEC. We're all good there. It's pretty cut and dry. Big Ten, also pretty cut and dry. Oregon's already clinched a spot, like I mentioned. Ohio State, they are in with a win, or if both Penn State and Indiana lose. So if Ohio State loses to Michigan, but Penn State and Indiana lose, Ohio State's still in. Penn State, they are only in if they win and Ohio State loses. So they need Michigan to win, and they also need to win. By the way, they play Maryland. I don't think they're going to lose that game. And then Indiana. I also do not think they're going to lose. They are playing Purdue this weekend, but Indiana does need to win, and then they also need Penn State and Ohio State to lose. If both Ohio State and Penn State lose, Indiana makes the Big Ten championship against Oregon. ACC, honestly, it worked out, so I guess I can't complain too much because all of these conferences are pretty cut and dry. The Big 12 is a disaster, and we're going to get into that, and I'm not even going to get into the nitty-gritty of that one. But the Big Ten, or the ACC, SMU's already clinched a spot. Good for them. I've been back in SMU the whole year. Ever since they made that switch to Kevin Jennings, they've been unstoppable. They have made the ACC championship game. Good for them. Miami has to beat Syracuse. If they beat Syracuse, they're in. If they lose and Clemson wins, then Clemson gets in that spot. So right now, Miami controls their own destiny. Clemson needs Syracuse to win, but they also need to win a tough game against South Carolina. So SMU's got it. Still waiting to see on second place. The Big 12, though, that's where everything is just fucked. It could be pretty cut and dry, but it could also just be absolutely insane. And if we've seen anything with the Big 12 this year, it's probably going to be absolutely insane. 9 teams still in contention for the Big 12 title game. Insane. There should not be that many teams still in contention. You got Arizona State, Iowa State, BYU, and Colorado. Those are the top. Those are the leaders right now. They're all tied at the top. Now, and they control everything. If 2 of those teams, those top 4 win and 2 lose, then the 2 who win are in. So if it happens to be Arizona State and BYU that win and Iowa State and Colorado lose, well, then we got an Arizona State, BYU, Big 12 title game. That sort of thing. If 3 of those top 4 teams win and only 1 loses, it gets a little tricky. So if Arizona State is the 1 team that loses, then it's Iowa State versus BYU for the Big 12 championship. If Colorado is the 1 team that loses, it is going to be Arizona State and Iowa State. If Iowa State is the 1 team that loses, we got Arizona State BYU rematch. But if BYU loses, that's when shit starts to hit the fan. If BYU is the 1 team that loses in that top 4 this weekend, then here's a couple different scenarios. Texas Tech beats West Virginia, and Baylor beats Kansas, and Cincinnati beats TCU, then it will be Colorado and Iowa State. If Texas Tech beats West Virginia, but either Kansas beats Baylor or TCU beats Cincinnati, then it's Colorado versus ASU. Arizona State. But if West Virginia just beats Texas Tech, then it's Arizona State versus Iowa State. What the hell? It should not be this damn confusing. Did you understand any of that? Because I had to read it so many times just to wrap my head around it. It's just insane, all the things that could happen in the Big 12 this weekend. Now, if all 4 teams in the top, if all 4 win, then we got Arizona State and Iowa State, which it is a possibility that all 4 teams win. That is definitely in the cards. It's not crazy to think about. Now, if all 4 teams lose this weekend, there is the possibility of an 8-way tie for first place, and I am not about to break that down. I do not have the time for that. You don't have the time for that. We're all just going to end up confused at the end. But if there were an 8-way tie for first place, teams like Baylor, Texas Tech, Kansas State, they could all have a shot at the title game, depending on the scenario. So I'm rooting for absolute chaos. It should not be this confusing to figure out who's playing for the Big 12 championship game. But it is, because we made it that way. It'll be interesting to see. All right, let's get into some games. I'll start with Friday's games, obviously. And you know what? Right off the bat, Minnesota Minute. Wisconsin is currently a 1.5-point favorite at home, which I guess they are the home team. It is a rivalry game, and the records are close. You got to give them a little bit of an edge, but I don't know how you can watch either of these teams play and think that Wisconsin's going to win. Maybe I'm biased, but I just don't see it. Minnesota, in my opinion, just a handful of plays away from being 8-3, whereas Wisconsin is quite a few plays away. Again, maybe I'm biased. Maybe it is. But this is what I believe, and I'm sticking to it. Offensively, I take Minnesota's offense over Wisconsin's. I think anybody would. Even if they still had their OC, currently don't, whatever, it doesn't matter. I still take Minnesota's offense over theirs. Defense, same. I take Minnesota's over Wisconsin's. Sure, it's technically the strength of their team. Minnesota's defense all day. Now, for Minnesota to really, stick it to Wisconsin, defensively, make Braden Locke beat you with his arm. He has not had a good year. For those who have not seen Wisconsin play or are just, who the fuck is Braden Locke? Here's who he is. In 9 games played, he has completed only 60% or more of his passes in 3 games, had more than 1 touchdown in only 2 games, and over 250 yards in only 2 games. And my favorite stat, other than the 1 game that he came in when Tyler Van Dyke went down and was injured, he came in relief, did not do this, but he has thrown at least 1 interception in every game except against Bama. That's a great stat. Every single game, that's 8 straight games of throwing an interception, at least 1, which I'll take a gimme like that. Why not? Make Locke beat you with his arm. You're not going to regret it. Now, their run game is their strength, but coming into this game, Wisconsin is on a current 4-game losing streak, and in those 4 games, Tawi Walker has only scored once, broken 100 yards 0 times, and has had over 4 yards per carry once. This offense is very beatable for the Gophers. I think I'm not going to say that they shut them out, but they could shut them down quickly. Defensively, Wisconsin is in the bottom half of the Big Ten. And like I said, it is the strength of their team, but it's just their offense has just been so bad that that's kind of where they're at. Now, when the Gophers have had to face better defenses than Wisconsin in the Big Ten, they are 0-3, averaging under 300 yards per game and only 21 points per game. Not great. Now, Wisconsin, on the other hand, defensively, when they've had to face better offenses in the Big Ten than Minnesota, yards per game, points per game, that sort of thing, they have struggled. 29 points per game and nearly 400 yards per game. They would rank 98th nationally and 81st if you took just those few games. Now, in the 2 games that they've played against offenses that are worse in the Big Ten than Minnesota, Northwestern, Purdue, 4.5 points per game, 212 yards per game, which would be first nationally. So when they play a bad offense, they dominate. When they play an offense with any sort of life, not great. Now, yes, Minnesota is towards the bottom of the Big Ten in offense. I still put them closer to the top tier of offenses in the Big Ten than I do that bottom. There is a clear drop-off between the real bottom of the Big Ten and then where Minnesota is. Quite a drop-off, in my opinion at least. Which means I think Minnesota's going to put up quite a few points in this game. They are going to break 20 easily. I don't see Wisconsin they might struggle to get to double digits. Let's just put it that way. Minnesota is going to finish the season 7-5, top half of the Big Ten, and Wisconsin is going to drop to 5-7 and miss out on a bowl game. I'm calling it right now. This is going to be a domination from start to finish by the Gophers. Now, I never put Friday games into my 5 faves, and I'm just going to stick to that, even though we have a bunch more Friday games than we normally do. But I'm still going to give out bets that I do like from these games. Minnesota plus 1.5 at minus 115. Minnesota money line minus 108, and Minnesota team total over 20.5. 20.5 at minus 125. Like I said, I just expect utter domination by Minnesota. All right, Oklahoma State, Colorado. Colorado is currently 16.5-point favorites. And it would be funny. It really would. And I think we all think it would be hilarious but I don't see Oklahoma State upsetting Colorado. Of the top 4 teams in the Big 12, this is the one where I don't see the underdog winning. Like I said, any team in the top 4 could lose this weekend. It is possible, and don't get me wrong, I guess Colorado could technically lose. This is just the one I see least likely to happen. Now, again, it's the Big 12. Weirder things have happened. But Oklahoma State, they've just been doo-doo all year. It's been bad. Defensively, they are the worst of the Big 12. Now, Texas Tech does kind of give them a run for their money, but just to put into perspective, they are 117th in points allowed, 132nd in total yards allowed, and 127th in passing yards allowed. And Colorado, if you didn't know, is 32nd in points scored, 65th in total yards gained, but here's the kicker, 8th in total passing yards. They are going to score quick and score often, and I'm not saying Oklahoma State can't score because their offense has not been terrible. They still do have a decent passing attack, and part of the reason their passing attack has been decent is because they have to throw the ball because they're always coming from behind. So whether they have to stay in games or come from behind, they have to throw the ball a lot. That's why their passing game is as good as it is. Now, if Oklahoma State wants any shot, they need to do what other teams have done, run the ball, keep it out of Colorado's hands. The only thing is they've struggled to run the ball, and and when Colorado gets the ball, that defense is not going to be able to stop them. And they're not going to be able to keep Oklahoma State's offense in this one. This could be a high-scoring game, but I think Colorado wins pretty easily. I like the over 65.5 at -110 in this one. We got Mississippi State at Ole Miss. Ole Miss is 26.5-point favorites. The Egg Bowl. Gotta love it. Ole Miss leads the series all-time 65, 47, and 6. I'm sad it's not on Thanksgiving this year. It's a real bummer. I would like to see that on Thanksgiving. It's tradition. But whatever, it is what it is. Now, before last weekend, Ole Miss was basically a shoo-in for the playoffs. They had to beat Florida, who has not been great this year, and then beat Mississippi State, who's at the bottom of the SEC. And Mississippi State's season, it's been over since the second game of the season. So, I mean, they have nothing to lose. And I guess Ole Miss has nothing to look forward to. So you can never count out the other team out in rivalry week. No matter how bad their season is, you can never count them out. But it really does feel like Ole Miss might try to take out some anger in this one. Now, last year, Mississippi State, better team than this year. Don't get me wrong. Don't come at me and say, well, they were way better last year. I know they were. They were way better last year. 5-6. Not like they were great, though. 5-6, and Ole Miss was 9-2 going into that game. And Ole Miss only won 17-7. Way closer than it should have been. So keep that in mind. It's a rivalry game. Crazy things have happened, and 26.5 points, that's a lot of points, guys. Now, in the last 10, Ole Miss is 6-4, but 5 of those have been decided by 10 points or less. Now, I get it. This Mississippi State team is really bad this year. I get it. But it's a rivalry game, and you can't count them out. In the past 25 years, there's only been 5 Egg Bowls that were won by more than 2 or 3 touchdowns. 26.5 points, guys, is a lot of points. 25 years, only 5 have been won by that much, if that much. Even though Mississippi State is bad, and I fully expect Ole Miss to win, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Mississippi State wins, but 26.5, guys, is a lot of points. I am not going to be shocked if this is a close game. Mississippi State plus 26.5 at -115, hammer that. Georgia Tech at Georgia. Georgia is currently 19.5-point favorites at home. All time, Georgia leads this rivalry 71, 41, and 5. They have won 8 of the last 10 and 17 of the last 20. They've absolutely dominated this rivalry for the last 20 plus years. Georgia Tech last won in 2016. Been a minute for them. It's been a minute. And the last 6 meetings between these two, Georgia's won by an average of 29 points. Just hasn't even been close. You can't even call it a rivalry. Now, over the last 10 years, You could say that last year's team and this year's team are the two best that Georgia has had to face when it comes to Georgia Tech. And last year, Georgia only won by 8. And Georgia may have been a better team last year. I expect it to be similar this year if Georgia wins. I'm not saying Georgia Tech can win, or will win, I should say, because they can. I'm not saying they will. But like I've been saying all year, any game is winnable with Haynes King, and he will keep it close if he is feeling 100%. Again, Georgia may win this game, but 19.5 points, it's a lot of points for a Georgia Tech team. They fight. They're a good team. Now, Haynes King did not play a lot last week, and they did have to eke out that win against NC State. Now, there's part of me that feels like they maybe didn't play him as much because they thought they could get away with that win, trying to rest him up for this week. But what do I know? I don't know shit. If Haynes King is healthy and is the starter, and they don't have to do a 2 QB system, he will do enough to keep them in this game, keep it close, and possibly win it. But if he is out or hardly plays like he did last week, then I do expect potentially a double-digit win for Georgia. Bets in this game, I do like Georgia Tech plus 19.5 at minus 110. Georgia Tech first half plus 10.5 at minus 106. Georgia's very much a second-half team. And then I got I got Georgia Bulldogs team total under 35.5 at minus 130. That was at 36.5 right before I was recording at a better price, but the line shifted on me. Nebraska at Iowa. Iowa is a 3.5 point favorite at home. That's gone down. It was at 5.5. Nebraska is bowl bound for the first time since 2016. Good for them, I guess. I don't like to cheer for Nebraska, so I shouldn't congratulate them. In this series, since Nebraska joined the Big Ten, Iowa is 9-4. Has not been great for Nebraska, but they are trending up, and Iowa might be trending down. Defense still very good defense, just not quite as scary and not quite as deadly as it has been in years past. Still very good though, don't get me wrong. Now their offense did take a big step forward this year, but a lot of injuries to the QB position have completely derailed that. They do still have Caleb Johnson, don't get me wrong. And they did go to Maryland last week and just ran all over them, which was a little shocking because Maryland has not been terrible against the run, but they were last week. They may have given up. Who knows? I don't think Iowa's going to have the same success on the ground this week against Nebraska, though, because Nebraska does have a good defense when it comes to stopping the run. 21st in the nation in rush yards allowed. And when you do look at the top rushing teams in the Big Ten, Nebraska has done a good job of, or at least when in 2 of the 3 games, they've done a good job. Shut down Ohio State, shut down Rutgers, got wrecked by Indiana, but whatever. 2 of 3 is still pretty good. If Nebraska is able to limit Caleb Johnson and force Iowa to throw the ball, they have a shot at the upset. I like Nebraska plus 3.5 in this one, minus 105. I liked it a lot better at 5.5, but whatever. Noon games, Saturday's games. Sorry, noon can mean Friday. We're getting into Saturday's noon games. Michigan at Ohio State. Ohio State is a 20.5 point favorite at home. Since 2000, Michigan has only won this game, 6 times. And 3 of those 6 wins came in the last 3 years. Now, obviously this is a down year for Michigan, so it will come as no surprise that I'm picking Ohio State to win this. But if you told me this game is close, I'm not going to be surprised. If you told me this game wasn't close, I'm also not going to be surprised. Either way, but Ohio State is one of the best teams in the nation. They really are, and they continue to show that week in and week out. Their only losses to Oregon by 1 point. Michigan, they may slow down Ohio State's offense for a minute. We'll get into preview for 5 favorites later, a little bit into that, but they may slow down Ohio State's offense early, but their own offense is not going to be able to do enough to keep them in the game. This game is just, it might start close. Michigan might think they have a shot, but it's going to end ugly. Tennessee at Vandy. Vandy is a 10.5-point dog at home. Tennessee is 7-3 in their last 10 against Vandy, and they are currently on a 5-game win streak, but this Vandy team, as we've noted, is significantly better than they've been in years past. Now, Tennessee has won the last 5 by an average of 29 points, the closest being 18 points. This is not going to be one of those games. Pavia is good. Vandy is good. This could be a scary game for Tennessee. Now, Tennessee needs this win if they want to stick in the playoffs because they aren't playing for an SEC championship. So if they want to make the playoff, they need to win this game. If they lose, they are out. And I'm going to sound like a broken record, but if you want to beat Vandy, you need to do at least 2 of these 3 things. Win time of possession, stop Vandy on third down, win the turnover battle. And when we look at LSU's win over Vandy last week, I won't go through every win that teams have had over Vandy. But LSU had the ball for nearly 10 more minutes, held Vandy to 2 of 10 on third down, and didn't lose the turnover battle. And they only won by 7 at home. That's how tough Vandy is. In case you didn't know, Tennessee likes to run a very fast-paced, hurry-to-the-line offense, so winning time of possession is going to be difficult. But they do have a turnover margin that is positive, and their defense has been great at third down stops. So if Tennessee can win 2 of those 3, this game could be close. Winning time of possession is going to be a struggle, and I wonder if they're going to try to slow down their offense a little bit just to combat that. It's not going to make my 5 faves, but I would lean the under in this one, just saying. Tennessee should win this game, but it might get dicey. South Carolina at Clemson. Clemson is currently a 2.5-point favorite at home, and this has the potential to be the game of the day. Clemson leads the series all time, 73-43-4, currently 8-2 in the last 10. But one could argue this is the best South Carolina team that they've had to face in a minute. Now, technically, Clemson could lose this game and still make the ACC championship game if Miami loses, but if they want to make the playoffs, they need to win this. Now, when we look back at Clemson's season, not great. Their 9 wins, App State, NC State, Stanford, Florida State, Wake Forest, Virginia, Virginia Tech, Pitt, the Citadel. Out of those, maybe Pitt is probably their best win, which is not great. And their 2 losses, Louisville and Georgia. Easily the 2 best teams that they've played this year, offensively and defensively, which makes me very nervous for this South Carolina game because we've already seen it this year. We've seen it 11 times. When they played 2 good teams, they've lost. When they played 9 mediocre teams, they've won. Or bad teams, they've won. I'm not going to touch this game. I honestly don't know. Either team could win this game. It really is a coin flip to me. I may live bet it, but South Carolina has a real shot to play spoiler to Clemson's playoff hopes. I'm not picking a side in this one. Kansas at Baylor. Baylor is currently a 1.5-point dog at home. They were a 1.5-point favorite recently, but that's switched. Kansas is having a magical end of the season. I'm not going to call their whole season magical just because it started out so ugly. But knocking off 3 straight teams that all had aspirations of a Big 12 championship and playoffs hopes too, just single-handedly creating so much chaos in the Big 12, and I love it. I'm here for it. Baylor, they've also had a pretty good season. They entered the season with Aranda on the hot seat, and after a slow start, but making a good switch at quarterback, they have quietly arrived at a 7-4 record and have saved Aranda's job. Both teams also are coming into this one hot. Baylor has won 5 straight, and Kansas has won 4 of their last 5. A huge reason for Kansas' success revolves around Jalen Daniels turning it around. Just midway through the season, just clicked for him, which was crazy to see, but they've been so much better since then. And Baylor, they technically have a very slim chance to make the Big 12 championship game, like I mentioned earlier. So technically, Kansas can play spoiler one last time if they really wanted to. Now, granted, the chances of them making the Big 12 title game are so slim, so you can't really call it a spoiler. But this is not a game I'm going to be touching just because, similar to South Carolina, Clemson. It's kind of a coin flip for me. So I will live bet this, if anything, because both teams are hot. Both quarterbacks are hot. This honestly could go either way. Baylor's better at throwing the ball, but Kansas is great at running it. Baylor's great at defending the pass, and Kansas is better at defending the run, but that's the opposite of what the other offenses are good at doing. It's honestly over in this one. I would lean over. I really would. And that's a spoiler for later on. But yeah, I over definitely in this one. West Virginia at Texas Tech. Texas Tech is a minus 2.5-point favorite at home. Two bad defenses going at it. West Virginia already fired their defensive coordinator. Just terrible all around. Both teams are at the bottom of the Big 12 in both points and yards allowed. I do give the edge to Texas Tech in this game just because they do have an overall better offense. And they are very good at throwing the ball. That's what they love to do. Not that they're bad at running the ball, they just love to throw it. And West Virginia is terrible at defending the pass. Absolutely terrible. They're dog shit at everything. West Virginia does love to run the ball on offense, which Tech is not good, but not terrible at defending the run. So, they'll get some stops here and there. I'm sure, I guess. If West Virginia can somehow find a passing attack, they have a shot. But West Virginians have only broken 250 yards passing one time this season. So the over will probably hit, but I think Tech wins this one quite easily. Notre Dame at USC. USC is currently a 7.5-point underdog at home. Overall in the series, Notre Dame leads 49, 37, and 5. Currently 7-3 in their last 10, but USC, during that 7-3 span over the last 10 years, those 3 wins have all come at home. So if USC is going to win, it's going to be this year because they are at home this year. I never root for USC, but I'm going to root for them this week for a few reasons. One, because I love chaos, but two, I know that Notre Dame deserves to be in the playoff right now, but I feel like we're going to regret putting them in the playoff because it's just going to be boring, blowout, and ugly. So if they lose to USC, they have to be out, assuming that there's not absolute chaos elsewhere. And I just don't want to watch Notre Dame in the playoff. I don't. Notre Dame is so boring. They really are. So I will be a USC fan from kickoff till the game ends. Now, Notre Dame currently does have the best pass defense in the country, but when we do look at their schedule, they have not faced any good passing attacks. Louisville would be the best so far at 13th in the nation, but that's really the only good one they faced. Now, other than Northern Illinois, who obviously beat Notre Dame, Louisville is the team that has come the closest to beating them. If they hadn't just made a couple of mistakes on offense to turn the ball over, they could have beat Notre Dame, and we wouldn't even be talking about them in the playoff right now. But again, other than Louisville, though, the next best passing attack that they faced was Virginia, I guess. They are 59th in the nation. Just easy schedule. Now, USC is 14th in the nation in passing, which bodes well for them because, like I said, we've only seen one team even worth a shit at throwing the ball, and they almost upset Notre Dame. Offensively, Notre Dame loves to run the ball. They are 11th in the nation in rush yards per game. Passing game is just not that great. If USC wants to win this game, they need to do 2 things. They need to force Notre Dame to throw the ball because they just don't do it and are not great at it. And they also need to force Notre Dame to get to third down, but then also stop them from converting third downs. Currently, Notre Dame is terrible at converting third downs. So if you can get them to third down, that's great. 84th in the country at converting, whereas USC is 18th in the country at third down stops. So get them to third down, and you have a shot. Do I think USC wins? No. But do I hope they win? Yes. I very much hope so. Iron Bowl, Auburn at Alabama. Alabama is a 11.5-point favorite at home. Overall, Alabama leads 50, 37, and 1, 8 and 2 in their last 10, including 4 straight. Now, Bama has 3 losses this season. All have been on the road, so that bodes well for them in this one, that this is at home. Does not bode well for Auburn, but whatever. Now, the key to this game for Auburn, if they do want to create a crazy upset, is to keep Jalen Milroe from beating you. That's really what it is. That's the whole offense, Jalen Milroe. And Oklahoma did a great job of that, and I'm sure they're going to take some stuff from there. Oklahoma forced multiple turnovers, kept him under 50% completion, and did not let him beat them with his legs. If we look at Alabama's 8 wins, Milroe is averaging 73.5 yards per game in those games and 2 touchdowns per game. In Bama's 3 losses, Milroe is averaging less than 10 yards per game on the ground and has 1 total touchdown in those losses. He's also thrown 6 of his 9 interceptions in those losses. If Milroe isn't on, that whole offense is dead. It's brutal. If we also look defensively for Alabama in those losses, they have gotten beat in the run game, allowing over 200 yards per game and 2 touchdowns per game. In their wins against Power 4 opponents, they're allowing 126 yards per game and only 3 total touchdowns on the ground. So, shut down Jalen Milroe, easier said than done, but also get a run game going. If you can pound that ball down their throats, you could win this game because we've seen it. If you can run the ball on them, you can win. It's a rivalry game, so you can never count out the underdogs. Auburn does have a shot to win it, but I think Bama's pissed and they're going to come out firing because we saw it with the playoff. They are one of the last 2 teams out, so they still think they have a shot. Miami at Syracuse. Syracuse is currently a 10.5-point dog at home. I mean, this should be an easy win for a 1-loss Miami team, but they've been flirting with disaster with teams significantly worse than Syracuse. Toughest offense that this Miami defense has had to face all year was Louisville, 15th in total offense, 17th in scoring. Next best, though, Georgia Tech, 46th in yards, 68th in scoring. They have not faced a scary or deadly offense all year other than Louisville. And they're still allowing nearly 30 points per game in conference play, whereas Syracuse is scoring just under 28 points per game in conference play. So you got an offense that can score against a defense who's been allowing a lot of points to mediocre offenses. I expect a high-scoring one in this one. I don't know if Syracuse's defense can do enough to stop Miami's offense and to win the game for them, but I do know their offense will do enough to keep it competitive, and I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. Arizona State at Arizona. Arizona is currently an 8.5-point underdog at home. They do lead this rivalry 51-45-1, but Arizona State is 6-4 in the last 10. But Arizona has won the last 2. Arizona's a dead team, though, this year. Been dead for a while. They've only got 1 win in their last 6. They're just ready for the season to be over with at this point. And most of those games have not been particularly close. Big 12 this year has been full of upsets and a lot of chaos, but Arizona has not been one of those chaos teams in the Big 12. I do expect some craziness in the Big 12 this weekend. I just don't think it's going to happen in this game. Offensively, Arizona's one-dimensional in quite a few ways. They love to throw the ball, and they avoid the run. Love to throw the ball. But even in the passing game, extremely one-dimensional. McMillan is their offense. He has 42 more receptions than the next closest, which player on the team, and the next closest is a running back, Quali Conley. If your running back, typically, more often than not, if your running back is the leader or has a lot of receptions, it's usually because you're dumping it off to him because there's nothing open downfield, that sort of thing. The fact that he is their second leading receptions, not good. McMillan also has 945 more yards than the next receiver. This offense is so dependent on him, it's insane. So if you shut down McMillan, you shut down this offense because Fafita has nowhere else to go. Arizona State's pass defense is 83rd in the country, which is not great for them. So there is a chance that Arizona is able to move the ball a little bit. But that triple threat of Leavitt, Scadaboo, and Tyson on Arizona State's offense is going to be too much for them. I'm not saying that Arizona can't keep it close because it is a rivalry game and it is the Big 12, but I just don't see them winning this one. Let's get into the evening slate now. Oklahoma at LSU. LSU is a 5.5-point favorite at home. I mean, we've seen it this year. LSU struggles when they have to face a mobile quarterback, and unfortunately for them, whether it's Jackson Arnold or Michael Hawkins, both quarterbacks for Oklahoma are mobile, so could be problematic. Now, as much of a disaster as Oklahoma's offense has been this year, their defense has been so great. They've been great against the run, which doesn't matter in this game because LSU refuses to run it, but they're also great at getting after the quarterback. And we saw it with Florida. They really got after Nussmeier. If you're able to get after Nussmeier, you have a very good chance at pulling off the upset on the road. So if Oklahoma State can get after Nussmeier, they have a shot in this one. Texas at Texas A&M. The rivalry is being restored. Texas A&M is a 5.5-point dog at home, and honestly, this is a do or die game for them. They win in the SEC championship game, and playoff hope's still alive. If they lose, they don't play in the SEC championship game, and they are officially out of the playoff. Now, they played an absolutely crazy game against Auburn last weekend, but couldn't come away with the win. And as we've seen with A&M this year, when they play a defense worth a shit, they lose. South Carolina, Notre Dame, Auburn. Texas has one of the best defenses in the country, and that does not bode well for them. Now, A&M's defense, decent enough, but that offense just leaves so much to be desired, especially in the passing game. I just don't see them doing enough on either side of the ball to be able to win this game, and I think Texas is going to come out with something to prove and wins this one. Kansas State at Iowa State. Iowa State is a 2.5-point favorite at home. Overall, Iowa State does lead the series 53-50-4, and they've won 3 of the last 4, but Kansas has won 6 of the last 10. Technically, both of these teams are still alive in the Big 12 title race. Iowa State needs to win and they are in, whereas Kansas State needs to win, but then needs all the chaos possible to happen in order for them to make it. Both teams started the season very strong, but come into this game 2-2 in their last 4. So it's kind of tapered off for both sides. Now, Kansas State offensively, a team that loves to run the ball. They are very good at it. Iowa State defensively struggles to stop the run, which doesn't bode well for them, obviously, if Kansas State's great at running it. Vice versa, offensively, Iowa State is great at throwing the ball. They've got a good pass attack, and Kansas State struggles against the pass. Has struggled all year against it. So could be a long game for them, but they are good at getting after the quarterback. So if they are able to get after Rocco Becht, maybe they don't get beat as much in the passing game. Pressure the quarterback, more errantist throws. Key to winning this game for Iowa State, shut down Avery Johnson. In every single game that Kansas State has won, Avery Johnson, 18 total touchdowns, 3 interceptions. In their losses, 1 touchdown, 6 interceptions. Stop the run if you can. It's going to be difficult. But when he does throw, hit him, get in his face, don't let him scramble around, and make him rush his throws. If he does not have a good game throwing the ball, Kansas State does not have a good game offensively. Even though they do rely on the run game, if he struggles throwing the ball, game over. Kansas State is on the road, which makes this more difficult for them, but they could pull off the upset. They really could. I'm excited for this game. I really am. I think, obviously, Iowa State is the favorite, but I really do think Kansas State could win. Houston at BYU. BYU is a 13.5-point favorite at home. Their magic has officially run out after barely beating Utah, which was a tough game. I'll give them that, but they've lost their last 2. Hasn't been pretty. The magic is gone. Houston started the season bad. But they won 3 of 4 in the middle and then dropped 2 straight. They do have a good defense. It's just their offense is the one that has issues. If you are able to score 20 or more points on this Houston defense, more than likely you've won the game at that point. They've only scored more than 20 points 3 times this season. One of those games was against Rice. So 2 games against actual formidable opponents. Houston's defense, good enough to win this game, but their offense is not. I think BYU does win this one. They potentially keep their Big 12 hopes alive, but the future is bright for Houston. It really is. All right, let's get into my 5 favorites. But before we do that, let's take a quick smoke break. All right, time for my 5 faves. Positive attitude, winning mindset. I told you we're turning this thing around, and that continues this weekend. It's kind of a weird sicko bet. I don't think I've ever given one out like this, but Michigan first half plus 11.5 at minus 118. Ohio State has proven all year to be kind of a second half team. First half tend to be kind of close. Look at last week against Indiana. Michigan might keep it close in the first half. So plus 11.5, give it to me. Kansas Baylor over 61.5, minus 110. For everything I was mentioning earlier when I previewed this game, I think this could be a higher scoring one. Kentucky team total under 22.5 at minus 112. Against Louisville, it's a rivalry game. I guess maybe they're going to come out with some firepower, but Kentucky has not broken 20 points in a game very much this season. I don't even know if they've done it against a Power 4 opponent. So seems like easy money. I don't know what I'm missing. But Kentucky team total under 22.5. SMU minus 13.5 at minus 110 against Cal. I mean, they're a good story this year. They kind of pooped the bed in a few games, kicking issues. I saw that interview with Mendoza last weekend. Powerful, emotional, love it. But SMU's a wagon. Kevin Jennings is a wagon. SMU blows out Cal this week. Syracuse team total over 27.5. I mean, they're averaging 27 points a game in ACC play. Miami is allowing nearly 30 points per game. Why can't Syracuse score more than 4 touchdowns? They can. They have the ability to do it. They're going to do it. Minus 118. Honorable mentions. Tennessee team total under 30.5 at minus 112. Very few teams have scored more than 30 points against Vanderbilt, and when they have, it's been games like, I guess Alabama did, but it's gone to overtime or things like that. Teams don't typically score more than 30 points in a game against Vandy. Now, Vandy also doesn't usually get to 30 points in a game, so they're always lower scoring, mucky games, and I just think Vandy's very good at doing that. I'm not saying Tennessee doesn't win. I just don't think they score more than 30. And then Arkansas and Kansas State money lines. Arkansas plus 118, Kansas State plus 108. Didn't make the cut. Part of the reason Kansas State money line didn't make the cut is because Power 4, money line parlay. Illinois, Texas, Virginia Tech, Kansas State plus 448. One of these has got to hit one of these final 2 weekends. It's going to happen, I promise, 'cause next weekend's only conference championship games, and so that's what the powerful money line is going to be. So that's what I got. Illinois, Texas, Virginia Tech, Kansas State. That money line's finally going to hit. We're going to hit a winner. It's going to be this weekend. And that 5-0 last weekend, guys, that's going to roll into this weekend. Positive attitude, winning mindset. I have turned this thing around. Thank you all for joining me. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Rivalry Week. I will talk to you guys on Sunday to recap the weekend.